Hi, I'm Stefanie Mumby. I haven't spoken in a while, so this is a real treat for me. I'm really excited. So, welcome if you're just tuning in to the Father's House live broadcast. It's a real honor to be speaking to you tonight. I haven't spoken in a long time, and the reason for that is because the last year, as many of you know, has been quite a challenging year for me and my kids and my family. And so this is my first time since my husband died in March being able to share. So I've actually really been looking forward to this opportunity. I knew that it would come eventually, and I've been very sort of prayerful and deliberate, over the last few months, knowing that this would come at some point. And so I really have been praying today, especially that, what the Lord has given me will speak to you. I've also really been contemplating on last week's sermon. So for those of you who tuned in last week, Nick Zeppi shared with us, and he was talking about entitlement. And I realized over this last week, that hit a really strong chord for me, that I feel incredibly entitled, and I really believe on a level that God owes me something because of what I've been through in the last year. And I think that this sermon tonight hopefully will kind of take you into a part of my journey over the last 4 months especially. So if you don't know our story at all, my husband, Jordy, who was the associate pastor at this church, he was diagnosed with rectal cancer in April of 2019. He was given between 3 and 5 years to live, and he actually passed away just before the year anniversary of his diagnosis. And that's not a story I'm going to get into all the way right now, but I have 4 kids. They range in age from 6 to 12, 3 boys and 1 girl. And this last 4.5 months has been quite a roller coaster. It's really important to me that, my relationship with Jesus doesn't change with my circumstances, and that is not... It's not an easy thing to do when you're going through the kinds of things that we go through on this earth. And I know I'm not the only one that, has a difficult, story. In fact, I've been, because my kids are the age that they are, with everything going on in the schools right now, I've been seeing on Facebook people from different countries or, all different places in the United States. Everybody's we're upside down right now. Let's just put it that way. I think everybody is upside down in some way right now. And we have different circumstances, and some of us have a bunch of circumstances, but the one thing that does not change is Jesus. And so I was reading the other night in my Bible, because I was having a hard time, and, when you're having a hard time, sometimes getting into your Bible is a really good plan. So I was reading... and I just happened to open to John 14. And when I read anything in my Bible, especially if I'm kind of starting just some random place, I like to look backwards a little bit and just sort of see what was Jesus talking about, before he made the statement that my eye fell on. And what was going on in the story just before we're going to start is that Jesus is telling his disciples what's about to happen to him. And of course, we know that he was, crucified, and then, 3 days later, he rose from the dead. But we also know that the disciples had their own ideas of what they thought was going to happen. And so this is sort of Jesus' response to that. Do not let your heart be troubled. Sorry, this is John 14, 1 through 4. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also, and you know the way where I am going. So I've been thinking about that a little bit, and part of the reason I've been thinking about it, of course, is, my husband now is with Jesus. And so, just to be perfectly honest with you all, that doesn't feel real to me yet. My heart hasn't let go of Jordy enough yet that I am okay that I've connected with the idea that he is really with Jesus, and I'm working on that. It's more of an emotional thing. It's not a head thing. I know the truth, and even my spirit, there's a part of me that really does know the truth, but emotionally, I'm just not ready to let go. And because of that, then there's this back and forth struggle between myself and Jesus where I'm sitting here going, I know you're with me. You promised you would be. And I also know that Jordy's with you, but what do I do now? And I know that I'm not the only one in circumstances like that. Maybe you don't have your spouse who's died and is living in heaven with Jesus, but we have so many things going on in our lives where we just don't understand why. Why is God allowing this to happen? Why is God not stopping something from happening? Or why did he allow something to happen? And now what do I do? We're all in this place right now, especially here in the United States and even more so in California, where it's like, what do we do? What are we supposed to do? Everything is upside down. And, people have all kinds of opinions that they're sharing, quite freely. And for us as Christians, the most important thing that we can do, and this is where, for me, I have to take sometimes baby steps forward, but I'm fighting for it, is that the only thing that matters for me as a believer in Jesus is that I am focused on him. And I am focused on the point. What is the point? The point is that we are supposed to get from here where we are today to spend eternity with him, and we are supposed to bring as many people with us as possible. So how do we do that when nothing makes sense? I want to go back into John 14, and I want to read it in a different way. Those of you that are familiar with me from teaching at other times will know that I really like looking up sort of the original language and all that stuff. So I want to read the same verses to you, but I want to read them in a different way. So here we go. John 14, verse 1. Don't let your heart of believing in me be disturbed. Let me read that again. I'm going to just go through this slowly because this isn't up on your screen, and so, I want you to absorb what I'm saying. So Jesus is saying to his disciples right after he told them that he's leaving. Now, let me just put this into context for just a second. So the disciples have been with Jesus for about 3 years at this point, and they've left their careers. Some of them have left their families, and they are on a path, and they think they know where they're going. They think, or they know that Jesus is the Messiah. They've come to believe that, and they believe that he's also, going to be king, and he's going to overthrow the Romans, and, Israel is going to rise to be what it was supposed to be. So they have thrown, everything. They've thrown all their eggs in the basket, so to speak, right? So they've thrown their eggs in the basket, and now Jesus is telling them that the plan is changing. So if you think about that for a second, just imagine their confusion, first of all, a little bit like what I said, which is like, why? What does this mean? What are we supposed to do now? And so this is Jesus' response to that, and they still don't even know really how bad it's going to get, but we'll get into that in a minute. Don't let your heart of believing in me be disturbed. In the home of my Father are many family staying places. And I will be beside you, joining you with myself, so that where I am, you can be also. I am withdrawing, and you have knowledge, and you understand the way, the road, and the journey. It's kind of interesting if you hear these verses that we've probably read, many times, and if you look at them a little bit more in the raw language, because what they do when they translate the Bible is, they make it into something that reads easily, and you get the point, in a very compact sort of way. But if you break it down and break it open, sometimes what you've heard many, many times becomes more clear. And the part that I just grabbed onto, and for the last 24 hours or so, I have been churning, and it almost feels to me like a hot coal just sitting in my chest. And it's just that very first part. Don't let your heart of believing in me be disturbed. And we all know that right now, and any time that we're uncertain of where we're going or what the future looks like, it doesn't take a lot for our heart of believing in him to be disturbed. But that is exactly Jesus' response to the announcement, hey, the plan changed, or at least your plan changed. He always knew the plan, of course, but they didn't. They put their eggs in the basket of Jesus the Messiah coming to overthrow the Romans. He's going to be king and make us king with him, or, elevate us up into this sort of status. And so when he announces that, he knows the first thing that's going to be disturbed for them is the heart of belief. And for us, it's exactly the same. Human nature hasn't changed all that much in 2,000 years, but it's really important to know that those are the things we have to hang on to. We have to actually set our feet sometimes, and we have to plant them firmly on the ground of what the truth is, and actually take the words of Jesus in a similar situation, sometimes to ours, and say, you know what? I'm not going to let my heart of believing in you be disturbed. And sometimes that's a choice, our head choice, and eventually our hearts follow. And that's, for me, the tug of war, right? Is like, I don't get it. My emotions want to take over and just, why? And we're all in that. I mean, people around us, they're losing their jobs, because their kids can't go to school. Or, they own a small business and they can't work, so they're losing their homes. There are people who are struggling to eat. There are people who have loved ones that are struggling. I mean, there's people that know, you know people that have died even of COVID, and everybody's going, why? But the real question is, why are we not focused on Jesus? That's the question. Why are we allowing the heart of belief to be disturbed inside of us? He hasn't changed. The disciples didn't understand the fact that or they thought the plan was changing, but actually it was the plan all along. And we don't know from where we sit right now what the plan really is. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know why. I don't know how many times I've just cried that question. Why? I don't want to do this. I've cried that so many times. I don't want to do this. And there's no answer for that. There may never be in this life. Sorry, just one sec. But I have to choose. We have to choose. The heart of belief cannot be disturbed by circumstance. He said, in the home of my Father are many family staying places. I think that term is really cool because it implies something different. We think of heaven, and in some translations in that verse, they say mansions. In my Father's house are many mansions. And it's like, ooh, we get to go to heaven and have a mansion. It's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the place where his family lives. And our circumstances don't change the fact that we're his family. But we lose sight of the truth when our circumstances don't make sense to us. And we almost disown him. And he instead is like, no, I went to prepare a place for you in my Father's family staying places. It's the place you're supposed to go. But we take our eyes off of the plan, or at least off of him, and we look so much at our circumstances. But his next thought there is, I will be beside you. That's actually what the literal translation means. I will be beside you, joining you with myself. So that where I am, when I'm in heaven with my Father, where I am, you can also be. We're supposed to be seated in heavenly places with him here on earth, in the middle of all of these crazy circumstances that we don't understand. And then he says, I'm withdrawing, I'm leaving. But you have knowledge. You have knowledge of me. You have knowledge of who I am. Just because your circumstances now have changed doesn't mean that who I am and who you've known me to be change. And because you've already known who I am, you understand the way. And the literal translation of that word way is the road or the journey. You know the road you have to follow to be with me, where I am seated with my Father in our family home that is waiting for you. Thomas asks, how can we know? How do we know the way? And this is where that, we've heard this before so many times, and this is where Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. But the literal translation there for those things is actually Jesus says, I am the road or the journey. That's the literal translation of the word way. I am the road or the journey. I am the truth, and that word truth there means any matter under consideration, I am the truth. In anything that you don't understand, in anything that you try to puzzle out in your mind, I am the truth under any circumstance, under any consideration, and I am the aliveness in every soul. That's the word life. That's where we're supposed to have our eyes focused. It doesn't matter what we are going through. He is the same. When life was good and it all made sense, that Jesus is the one we're still following. This is about eternity. This is not what is happening right now in the world. This is temporary. We have to get our eyes off of all of the distraction. And some of it, guys, is so legitimate. It sucks that my husband died. Some of you know, some don't. But we all have things that are hard that we don't understand. We have to keep our eyes on him. Our job here on earth is to demonstrate a knowledge where we are joined with him as he's seated in heaven. That joining of us and him is supposed to demonstrate to the world who he is, and we are supposed to be taking people with us on this road to meet him and to be seated in his family staying place. If we have not been focused on this, I think, there's room for repentance here. I know there is for me. Going back to last week's sermon, this idea of entitlement. God, you owe me. You didn't heal Jord. Why didn't you heal him? Well, now you owe me. You owe me. You owe my children. Those are the things that creep into our hearts, and all of that's not true. He doesn't owe me anything. I owe him. I owe him everything. The fact that I'm standing up here speaking to you and I still have faith, I owe that to him. He doesn't owe me anything. For you, he owes you nothing. He saved you. He forgave you. He loves you. That's enough. Let's take a minute, wherever you are, close your eyes. And if you have been looking at everything but him, or if you've been living in fear and chaos and uncertainty and hatred and anger and judgment even, all the yucky stuff, if you've been living in any of that, we need to ask for his forgiveness. He knew that in 2020 this was going to happen. He knew that he was going to be crucified, and he knew his disciples were going to struggle, and he knows that we're going to struggle. He knows that we're struggling, and he understands. But he wants to join with us in this so that where he is, we can also be, and we can have that heavenly perspective. So, Holy Spirit, we come to you, and we don't understand. There is so much we don't understand. Will you teach us to find you? Will you teach us to not let our heart of belief be disturbed by our circumstances and the things that we don't understand? We give you permission to break through all of the chaos. Will you forgive us for where we've actually tried to do this journey alone? Jesus, you are good, and I don't understand. But what I do know is that you are good. And that is where I'm going to plant my feet. I love you.
Thank you so much, Steph. Such a raw message coming from such a raw spot for many of us. I know that I can raise my hand and say I'm that guy. I'm that guy that tries this alone sometimes. That guy that forgets. But thank you so much, Steph.
Thanks for watching the Father's House Orville YouTube channel, but don't stop there. We'd love you to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a live service or a video. Help us spread the message of Jesus by sharing this video with your friends. You can also support the Father's House financially by clicking the Give button. Thanks again for watching today, and we hope to see you again soon.